What happens when I follow the rules exactly and let a district manager see what my job really looks like? This story happened about 20 years ago, but it is still etched in my memory like it was yesterday. At the time I was working in a toy shop and it was just a few weeks before Christmas. Anyone who has ever worked retail knows the madness of the holiday rush, but imagine that madness turned up to 11. Families with screaming kids, long lines at the registers, toys being pulled off shelves faster than we could restock them. It was chaos every single day. Each employee had their own section of the store to manage. Mine was the boys' toy section, the aisle with all the action figures, superheroes, and toy weapons. It was one of the busiest sections in the entire shop, located right next to the registers. On top of that, I was also the only non-manager allowed to process refunds and exchanges. Normally, that would be the responsibility of the managers, but since the cashiers didn't have radios to call for help, and the managers could be anywhere in the store, the cashiers started calling me whenever a customer needed something complicated. So not only was I trying to keep my shelves stocked and tidy in the busiest section of the store, I was constantly being pulled away to process refunds, exchanges, and store credits. Some days I felt like I spent more time behind the registers than in my own section. Enter the district manager. Let's call him D fittingly, since he was kind of a D in every sense. He had a business degree but had never actually worked on a shop floor in his life. A few weeks before Christmas, he came storming into the boys' toys section about an hour before closing. He looked around, saw the mess of half-empty shelves and toys scattered by kids, and exploded. "This section is a disaster," he barked. "Why are there gaps in the shelves? Why isn't this tidy?" I tried to explain. "Sir, I've been covering exchanges and refunds all day. The cashiers keep..." He cut me off with a dismissive wave. "Excuses. This is unacceptable." Then he stormed out. I was frustrated but not surprised. He was the kind of manager who judged everything on appearances and numbers, not on the actual work behind the scenes. The next morning, right at opening, he showed up again. During the staff huddle where our store manager was assigning sections, D interrupted and declared, "I'll be working with OP today. Clearly, she doesn't know how to handle her section, so I'm going to show her how it's done." The room went quiet. My coworkers glanced at me with sympathetic looks. Our store manager hesitated, then continued assigning everyone else. I stayed silent. If D wanted to prove a point, I was going to let him. He followed me to boys' toys like a shadow. "Well, what's first? Or do you not even have a plan?" he sneered. I started to explain. "Usually, I begin by restocking the action figures. They're the fastest sellers. Then oh sorry, they're calling me to the registers. I'll be back in a minute." I left him standing there and went to process a refund. By the time I got back, 15 minutes had passed and he hadn't done a single thing. He was just standing there, arms crossed, waiting for me to tell him what to do. The rest of the morning was more of the same. I'd start to explain a task: "We need to restock this end cap," or "These shelves need tidying," and then I'd get called to the registers again. Returns, exchanges, angry customers, you name it. Every time I had to leave D alone in the aisle. To his credit, he actually stuck with me all day. He trudged up to the stockroom and hauled boxes of toys back down. He bent over to pick up items kids had thrown on the floor, only to watch them get thrown down again minutes later. He'd tidy a shelf, and 5 minutes later it would be in shambles. Meanwhile, I was constantly being pulled away to deal with refunds. I started counting just to make a point. 5 times an hour I was called away from my section. By the end of the day, I had left him standing alone more than 30 times. At lunch we sat down together. He was sweaty, tired, and visibly irritated. He muttered something about kids these days and scarfed down his sandwich. I almost felt sorry for him, but only almost. By the end of the shift, he finally understood. He had spent an entire day trying to manage boys' toys and had barely kept his head above water. He didn't apologize, of course not. I was too lowly for him to admit he was wrong. But the next morning at the opening meeting, something surprising happened. Our store manager announced a new policy. From that day forward, the boys' toy section would always have 2 staff assigned during shifts, and managers would make a point of being more available to the registers so I wasn't constantly being pulled away. That was all the validation I needed. D never mentioned our day together again, but his actions had spoken louder than his words. He had tried to prove I was useless, and all he had done was prove how hard my job actually was. Should I stay in this relationship if my boyfriend refuses marriage because he is secretly rich? For 2 years, I thought I truly understood the man I was dating. He is 25, I am 23, and we have lived together for the past 6 months. We have what most people would call an ideal relationship. We laugh together, we are affectionate, we share hobbies, and we have built a comfortable routine. My cats adore him, which in my world is a high stamp of approval. In so many ways, he feels like the perfect partner. But now, everything I thought I knew has been shaken. When I first asked him out, I barely knew anything about his finances. Honestly, I didn't care. I was attracted to who he was: funny, thoughtful, intelligent. We both came across as frugal, penny-pinching types. On our early dates, I would always insist on splitting the bill, and he seemed to respect that. It fit perfectly with my own values. I assumed we were both just scraping by, living modestly, and that was fine with me. Over time, little pieces of information trickled in. I learned he had good credit. He knew his way around stocks. He even talked about wanting to buy a house someday. Instead of feeling intimidated, I was inspired. If he was saving, I wanted to save harder. I wanted to be a partner who pulled her own weight. After about a year, we revisited the topic of marriage. That was when I got my first real surprise. I had casually suggested prenups as a good idea, saying I didn't find them offensive and thought they were practical. He shut it down hard. Not only did he say prenups were too expensive, but he also declared that he never wanted to get married at all. In his words, marriage was just a piece of paper, unnecessary and risky for finances. I was stunned, but I tried to accept it. Maybe marriage wasn't in his future. I loved him and I thought love was enough. He told me I was wife material, but insisted that a legal document wouldn't prove that. I tried to believe him. A few months later, he bought a house. At first he said it was a financial strain, but he wanted me to move in anyway. I paid out of pocket for the move, and once we settled in, I offered to split shared bills. He refused rent money and told me to save my earnings instead. I took that as generosity. I thought again that he loved me and wanted to support me. But the cracks began to show when I brought up alternatives to marriage, legal protections that mimic marriage rights without the ceremony. He got defensive, even made a weird joke asking if I was plotting against him. I dropped it again, not wanting to upset him. Then, just before our 2-year anniversary, he revealed something I never saw coming. He is nearly a millionaire. Not figuratively, literally, almost a millionaire through investments and savings. All that time I thought we were just two young, thrifty people trying to build a future. He had already built one. I sat there in disbelief, realizing he had lied by omission for 2 years. He had hidden his wealth from me. And worse, when I tried to talk about marriage again, he flatly said he would never let anyone near his money. He would rather set up a trust fund after death than share finances with a partner during life. Suddenly, all his arguments about not affording a prenup made no sense. He absolutely could afford one. He just never wanted to consider it. I felt crushed. It was never about the money for me. I loved him when I thought he was broke. I stayed with him because of who he is, not what he has. Yet he sees me as a potential gold digger, a threat to his hard-earned fortune. That hurts more than anything. Now I feel stuck. I still love him. He is still the sweet, considerate man who cooks dinner with me, cuddles my cats, and makes me laugh until my sides hurt. But I can't shake the feeling that he doesn't trust me, that he will never see me as an equal partner, no matter how hard I try. Marriage to me isn't about money. It's about commitment, about building a life together. It's about legal protections if one of us gets sick, about having a say in each other's lives. And he refuses all of it, not because he doesn't believe in love, but because he doesn't believe in me. I don't know how to reconcile that. Do I accept his terms, live with him, love him, and never marry? Do I continue pouring my heart into someone who would rather protect his bank account than commit to me fully? Or do I walk away, knowing I will always feel like I wasn't trusted enough to be a true partner? That is the crossroads I am standing at now. Am I overreacting for walking out on a date after he insulted my food? I am a 26-year-old woman, and I recently went on what was supposed to be a fun second date with a guy I had been chatting with for about a month. Let's call him Mark. We matched online, texted regularly, and had good conversations. He seemed funny, attentive, and respectful. Our first date was casual, just coffee and a walk in the park. It went well enough that I was excited to see him again. For our second date, I suggested one of my favorite restaurants, a cozy little spot that does an Asian Latin fusion menu. I've been going there for years and I love introducing people to it. When we sat down, things started out fine. We ordered drinks and chatted about our week. Then it came time to order food. I went with my usual favorite, beef empanadas stuffed with kimchi. It's an unusual combination, but it's one of the best dishes I've ever had. When the plate arrived, I was practically bouncing with excitement. But then Mark looked at my plate, wrinkled his nose, and said, "That looks disgusting. I don't know how you can eat that." First, I thought he was joking. I laughed awkwardly and said, "No, trust me, it's actually amazing." I even offered him a bite. He shook his head and smirked. Then he added, "The smell is really intense." I tried to brush it off, focusing on my food, but as the meal went on, he kept making little comments. Things like, "I'd never date someone who eats weird stuff like that regularly, and if I brought that home, my roommate would kick me out." With each remark, my excitement about the date dwindled. I started to feel self-conscious and embarrassed. Here I was eating something I genuinely loved, and instead of respecting that, he was making me feel like I was gross. I finally put my fork down and said as calmly as I could, "You know, you're being pretty rude. You don't have to like what I eat, but you also don't need to insult it." He smirked again, leaned back in his chair and said, "I'm just being honest. Isn't honesty important in dating?" That was the last straw. Honesty is one thing, but cruelty disguised as honesty is another. I realized in that moment that I didn't want to sit across from someone who thought belittling me was funny or charming. So I signaled for the waiter, asked him to pack up my food, and told Mark I would pay for my share. He looked surprised but didn't protest. Once I paid, I stood up, thanked him for meeting me, and walked out. As I left the restaurant, I felt a mix of relief and disappointment. Relief that I didn't waste the rest of the night, but disappointment because I had genuinely been hopeful about him. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark. He wrote, "Wow, you really embarrassed me back there. Walking out like that was unnecessary. You're way too sensitive." I stared at the message, feeling my jaw tighten. Sensitive? Because I didn't want to sit there and be disrespected over a plate of food? I didn't reply. The thing is, food is a huge part of who I am. I grew up in a multicultural family, and meals were how we connected. Trying new flavors, experimenting with recipes, sharing dishes with friends. It's not just about eating, it's about joy. If I date someone long-term, I want them to at least respect that. I don't expect them to love everything I eat, but I do expect them not to insult me for it. The more I thought about it, the more it bugged me. Was I really too sensitive? Should I have laughed it off and stayed? I mean, it was just one date. But then I asked myself, if this is how he behaves on a second date when people usually try to impress each other, how much worse would it get later on? Would I constantly have to defend my choices? Would he mock other things I enjoy? To me, it felt like a preview of the kind of relationship we would have, and I didn't like what I saw. I want a partner who supports me, who finds joy in learning about the things I love, even if they don't share all of them. I don't want someone who makes me feel ashamed over something as simple as dinner. Some of my friends had mixed reactions when I told them what happened. A few said I did the right thing, that respect should be the bare minimum, and walking out was a clear signal I wouldn't tolerate that kind of behavior. Others shrugged and said, maybe you overreacted. Some people just have no filter about food. They argued that it wasn't a big deal, that I could have given him another chance. But my gut says otherwise. Dates are about getting to know each other, and first impressions matter. If his idea of fun conversation is insulting my choices and then calling me sensitive when I push back, that tells me a lot about him. Maybe I dodged a bullet. Still, I can't help replaying the scene in my head. His smug expression, his dismissive tone, the way he tried to pass off rudeness as honesty, and then his text afterward, blaming me for embarrassing him. It makes me wonder, was I truly wrong for walking away? Or was it the only healthy thing I could have done? So here I am writing this out, hoping for some clarity. Am I overreacting for thinking that a man openly mocking my food on a second date is enough reason to walk out? Am I the asshole for not congratulating my brother on his engagement? I am a 32-year-old woman, and I have an older brother who is 45. We used to be close when I was younger, but over the past 5 years we drifted apart. The distance started when I moved out of state with my husband for work. We both had opportunities we could not pass up, so life carried us in different directions. But this story is not just about distance. It is about money, trust, and now his engagement. Back when I was preparing to move, I realized I was still listed on a joint credit card with him. I had not used the card in years, but I discovered there was a balance of about $5,400 on it. When I confronted him, he assured me he would take care of it. He said once he paid off the balance, I would be able to remove my name from the account. The credit card company told me something different. Until the balance was completely paid off, my name would remain tied to the account. That made me nervous, but I trusted him. He was my older brother, and I believed he would handle it. Fast forward 5 years, and the balance has ballooned to over $8,000. My once excellent credit score of 802 has dropped to 612. I worked hard to maintain my financial health, paying bills on time and being careful with money. Meanwhile, my brother, who once had a great job and even received an inheritance of $250,000 when his first wife passed away in 2019, never cleared the debt. He had the means to pay it off long ago, but he simply did not. During this time, I built a life. I bought a house in 2023 and a car too back when my credit score was still strong in the 770s. Things were stable until late last year when my brother decided to stop paying the credit card. That was when the notifications started pouring in, each one warning me that my score was dropping. When I confronted him, he told me he had closed the account and reached a settlement with the credit card company to make smaller payments. That was 2 months ago. Since then, my score has dropped again. I have tried to reach him through texts and calls, but he has not responded. Now here is where the engagement comes in. Just a few days ago, he told me that he was getting married again. He sounded excited, and my mom immediately started telling me how happy she was for him. She also told me that I should congratulate him, but I could not bring myself to do it. My first thought was not about his happiness. It was about that credit card, the debt still tied to my name, and the years of trust he has broken. I did not even know his fiancée. I have never met her. How can I congratulate someone who has let my credit be destroyed while he prepares for a new chapter in his life as though nothing happened? My mom thinks I am being an asshole. She says that after everything he has been through, especially losing his first wife, I should support him in this moment of joy. She says refusing to congratulate him is cruel and petty. But from my perspective, he is the bigger asshole. He has had every opportunity to pay off the debt, including the inheritance, and yet he has allowed it to grow. He has ignored my attempts to talk about it, and now he expects me to play the role of the supportive sister while he moves on with his life, leaving me stuck with the consequences of his irresponsibility. I keep going back and forth in my head. Part of me wonders if my silence is making me look bitter, like I cannot separate financial issues from family celebrations. Another part of me says that if he really cared about family, he would have never left me tied to that card for so long. It is not just about the money. It is about respect, honesty, and trust. He has shown me none of those. And while I do not want to ruin his happiness, I cannot pretend like everything is fine when I am the one left dealing with the fallout. My husband supports me. He sees the stress this has caused me and understands why I cannot celebrate my brother's engagement wholeheartedly. But my mom keeps calling, telling me I am cold and that this is my chance to mend the relationship. She says family is more important than money, but she has not been the one dealing with credit score drops, loan rejections, and the constant anxiety of being tied to debt that is not hers. I want to be clear. I am not jealous of his engagement. I want him to be happy. I just cannot ignore the mess he has created for me. If he had paid the debt and then shared his news, I would have been the first to cheer for him. But he has not. He has ignored it, ignored me, and then expected congratulations on top of it. So here I am. My mom says I am the asshole. I feel like my brother is the one who has wronged me, and I am left wondering, am I truly wrong for not congratulating my brother on his engagement, given everything he has done to my finances and my trust? Am I the asshole for wanting my husband's family to apologize for questioning if our twins are really his? My husband and I have been married for almost 2 years, and right now we are expecting twin boys. We found out in May, and from the second the doctor confirmed it, we were overjoyed. These babies were not an accident who had been trying. We were so ready to start our family together. A few weeks ago, we traveled back to our hometown to celebrate with our families before the babies arrive. I was glowing, my husband was proud, and we thought it would be a sweet time surrounded by love and excitement. Instead, it turned into one of the most painful experiences of my life. We had been making our rounds, visiting relatives, answering all the usual questions, and everything seemed fine. But one afternoon, my sister-in-law pulled me aside. She looked awkward, almost guilty, and then asked a question that left me speechless. Everyone in the family has been wondering, are the babies his? I blinked at her. First I thought I misheard, but she repeated it. She explained that the family had been whispering behind my back, speculating that maybe I had cheated, that maybe the twins weren't my husband's children. I was stunned. We had never had any issues of infidelity. No separation, no D-word, divorce talk. Yes, like every marriage, we had a brief rough patch after our first year, but it was nothing major. And yet, his family apparently thought I had stepped out of the marriage romantically and sexually with other men. I felt sick. Not only were they questioning my character, but they were also questioning the paternity of my children. Children that my husband and I had prayed for, cried over, and celebrated. I didn't even argue. I just walked away, furious and hurt, and told my husband I was heading back to my family's house. He was confused, but I told him what happened and he promised he would handle it. Later that evening, he spoke to his mother about it, and that's when we learned the truth. His mother admitted that she was the one who started the rumor. She said she genuinely believed for a while that I had cheated, but then she shrugged it off with a weak excuse. I did the math and the timeline adds up. That was it. That was her explanation. Not an apology. Not remorse. Just, I thought you cheated, but now I guess you didn't, so let's move on. I couldn't believe it. She had planted a poisonous idea into the minds of my husband's entire family, letting them look at me with suspicion, whisper about me behind closed doors, and judge me as if I were unfaithful. And all I got was, the timeline adds up. My husband tried to calm me down. He told me maybe I shouldn't take his sister's words as gospel truth, but he asked his mom directly, and she confessed. It was real. She spread the rumor. I told him I needed a real apology, a heartfelt one, something that acknowledged the pain she caused me and the stain she left on my reputation. But he told me to just accept her answer and move on for the sake of peace in the family. I couldn't. That night, I slept in a separate room from my husband. I was shaking with anger, replaying the conversation in my head. I couldn't stop thinking about how humiliating it felt. These people were supposed to welcome me into their family, to embrace me and my children. Instead, they reduced me to a stereotype. The unfaithful wife who traps her husband with kids that aren't his. The next morning, my husband tried again to convince me to let it go, but I stood firm. I told him I would not forgive and forget until his mother gave me a real apology. Not an excuse. Not some flimsy, I dismissed it. A genuine acknowledgement that she was wrong and that she slandered me. Since then, my husband has come around. After seeing how upset I was, he went back to his mom and told her she needed to clear the air. He talked to other family members too, making sure they knew the rumor was false. But his mom still hasn't apologized properly. She remains stubborn, refusing to admit just how much damage she caused. So, for now, I have decided I am not speaking to her. I will not sit across from her at family dinners, pretending everything is fine. She can live with the consequences of her lies until she does the right thing. My husband supports me now, and he even apologized himself for not taking my side immediately. But I still feel broken by it all. My reputation has already been damaged. Once a rumor like that starts, even if it's proven false, it lingers. People remember. They judge. And I don't know if I'll ever truly feel comfortable around his family again. The hardest part is that this isn't even unusual behavior for my mother-in-law. Apparently, she has a reputation for gossiping and spreading lies about other people too. It's like a hobby for her. But this time, she didn't just hurt a stranger, she hurt me. And she hurt her own son by making him question how his family sees his marriage. So here I am, caught between protecting my peace and trying to keep the family bond intact. Do I dig in my heels and demand the apology I deserve, risking more conflict? Or do I give in, let it slide, and accept that my husband's family will always see me differently because of the poison his mom spread? Am I the asshole for refusing to let this go until I get a real apology? Is this entitled behavior when my younger sister refuses responsibility and expects everything? Growing up with siblings is never simple, but I never imagined my little sister would turn into the most entitled person I know. I am 19 years old, and my younger sister is 16. On paper, that does not sound like a huge age gap, but in reality it has created a divide between us, especially when combined with the way our parents treat her. She was considered a miracle baby. My parents did not think they could have more children after me, so when she arrived, they poured every ounce of energy, money, and attention into her. First I understood it. She was younger, fragile, and adored. But over the years, it has become clear that my parents' unconditional spoiling has shaped her into someone who believes the world owes her everything. The earliest signs started when she turned 10. My parents bought her an iPad, secondhand but still in great condition. Most kids would have been thrilled. Not my sister. She announced that it was embarrassing to have something that was not brand new. Within a week, she deliberately smashed it with a rock in the backyard. I was horrified. Our parents scolded her, but then, unbelievably, they went out and bought her the brand new version she had demanded. That was the first moment I realized discipline and boundaries were absent in her world. 3 years later, the same pattern repeated itself with her first phone. She complained that it was not the latest model. When my parents insisted it was fine, she somehow accidentally put it through the washing machine. Whether it was deliberate or not, I will never know, but the result was the same. She whined until they replaced it with the newest version. Watching that happen again made me angry, but my frustration was dismissed as jealousy. Around the same time, she began targeting me directly. I had been working part-time jobs since I was 14, saving money to buy my own things: makeup, skincare, snacks, even small luxuries. My sister started stealing them. At first it was little things, a lipstick gone missing or my favorite perfume suddenly half empty. Then it became blatant. Entire bottles of skincare would vanish, or snacks I had been saving would mysteriously disappear. Whenever I confronted her, she flat out denied it, even when I later found the items in her drawer or hidden under my bed. It was surreal. She would look me in the eye and lie as if I were the crazy one. I eventually bought a cabinet with a lock just to protect my belongings. When I complained to my parents, they promised to talk to her. But instead of holding her accountable, their solution was, "We will buy you whatever you want so you do not have to use your sister's things. Just tell us what you want, or take a picture." It was like rewarding bad behavior. Now she is 16, and the consequences of that upbringing are impossible to ignore. She got her first real job recently, but quit almost immediately because she did not want to wake up early for her 3-hour shifts. She has been looking for another job for months, but in reality it is just filling out half-hearted online applications whenever my mom pressures her. In the meantime, my parents fully fund her life. Starbucks drinks, skincare, clothing, entertainment, everything is provided. She has no sense of money or responsibility. Whenever I point out that she needs to learn independence, I get accused of being bitter or unsupportive. 2 days ago, she actually managed to land another job. The whole family celebrated. I even congratulated her sincerely because I wanted to believe she could finally take a step toward adulthood. Yesterday she went to her first training shift, just 6 hours long. Last night she came home, sat at the kitchen table, and declared tearfully that she was going to quit. She said it was too much work, and that she would find something better. She spent the rest of the evening crying to my mom about how unfair it was. My parents, instead of telling her she needed to stick with it, comforted her and said maybe the job was not the right fit. I wanted to scream. It was her very first shift. How can she know it is not the right fit when she has not even given it a chance? At this point I am at a loss. Part of me is angry at her, but part of me knows it is not entirely her fault. She has been raised to believe that life bends to her will. Whenever she throws a tantrum, she gets what she wants. Whenever she breaks something, it gets replaced. Whenever she refuses responsibility, my parents excuse it. It is a cycle they created, and now she is 16 with no idea how to function in the real world. I am afraid she will become an adult who cannot handle rejection, work, or independence. I am not sure what to do. I have tried talking to my parents, but they always defend her. I have tried talking to her directly, but she either laughs at me or accuses me of being jealous. I know I cannot change her personality overnight, but I desperately want to help her see reality before it is too late. Watching her flounder and sabotage every opportunity is painful. It feels like watching someone build their own cage while insisting they are free. I guess the question is, how do you help someone who does not want to be helped? My sister is so entitled that she believes responsibility is optional. She thinks the world is full of endless handouts, because that is all she has ever known. I worry about the day when she faces her first real crisis and discovers that not everyone will rescue her the way our parents do. Maybe then she will learn. Or maybe she will just find someone else to lean on, leaving chaos in her wake. All I can do right now is set boundaries for myself. I keep my belongings locked. I refuse to cover for her when she quits jobs. I remind myself that I am not her parent. Still, I wonder if I am being too harsh, or if my frustration is just bitterness. Deep down, I know she is capable of more. But as long as my parents continue enabling her, she may never find out. Was I wrong to make my whole team give up flexi time after they complained about me leaving early? Some workplace dramas are small, almost laughable. But when you're the one stuck in the middle, they can feel enormous. This story takes me back to a time when I worked in a large office with multiple departments. Each department could decide whether or not to use a flexi time system. Most departments embraced it because it allowed people to adjust their hours as long as they covered the core times. In our office, the phone lines were open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and the core hours were 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That meant everyone had to be in the office between those hours, but otherwise people could choose how they arranged their day. As long as there was coverage on the phones for the hour before and after, management didn't care. It was a good system. People with long commutes or family commitments could make their schedules work. I lived the farthest away of anyone in my department and traffic was brutal. After confirming with management, I had worked out a schedule where I came in at 8 a.m. every day and left at 4 p.m. That way, I avoided the worst of the rush hour traffic. For 4 years, I worked these hours without a single complaint. My work got done, the phones were covered, and everyone was happy. That changed when I switched departments. Almost immediately, my new coworkers had a problem with my schedule. Even though there was always coverage until 6 p.m., they fixated on the fact that I was the only one leaving at 4. If we're all staying until 5, why should you get to leave early? They grumbled. It didn't matter that I'd already put in my hours, that the system was designed for flexibility, or that management approved it. They were determined to make it an issue. They complained constantly to our manager. To his credit, he tried everything to appease them. He suggested that they could also leave at 4 if they wanted. He proposed a rotating schedule so people could take turns. He even reminded them that I covered the phones in the early morning when no one else was around. But nothing satisfied them. Their stance was simple. If they had to stay until 5, so should I. Eventually, my manager came to me, weary from the constant whining. He admitted he had tried every reasonable solution, but they just wouldn't let it go. I asked him if he could hold them off for a couple more weeks because I had a plan. He smiled knowingly. He trusted me enough to let me handle it. 2 weeks later, we had a team meeting to discuss working hours. My coworkers were already wound up, voices raised about fairness and teamwork. I sat quietly, letting them vent, occasionally adding a little comment here and there to keep their momentum going. When they were really riled up, I raised my hands and said, "All right, I hear you. Maybe you're right. If it bothers everyone that much, maybe I should just work 9 to 5 like the rest of you." There were nods and murmurs of approval. One person said, "Finally, we'll all be on the same page." I continued, "But if we're going to be fair, then we should all work the same hours. No flexi time at all. Everyone every day 9 to 5. That way there's no resentment. We'll all start together, finish together." Their nods grew more enthusiastic. The manager, who had been silent until then, said, "That's a brilliant idea. If that's what the team wants, we'll implement it immediately." Suddenly silence. A few faces went pale as the realization set in. Flexi time wasn't just my privilege, it was everyone's. Some of them had been sneaking in later after watching international sporting events in the morning. Others used long lunches to catch major games being shown on the office projector. Flexi time had been letting them balance personal life with work, but in their eagerness to cut me down, they hadn't thought through what they were losing. I sweetened the deal. And since I'll be here later, there's no need for me to skip lunch anymore. I'll be taking the full hour from now on. I watched as more of them squirmed. My 1-hour lunches meant they couldn't have 2-hour stretches to watch sports on the big screen anymore. I also pointed out, oh so casually, that since I wouldn't be coming in early anymore, I wouldn't be the one processing payments from the previous day in the quiet 8 to 9 window. That work would fall to everyone during the busy core hours. Their victory was starting to look more like self-sabotage. The cherry on top, my manager had told me 2 weeks earlier that the office would soon be relocating closer to my home, as part of a cost-cutting move. Once that happened, my commute would be much shorter, so a 9 to 5 schedule actually worked better for me. Their attempt to punish me ended up rewarding me. In the UK, there's a phrase, "Don't piss on your chips." It means don't ruin something good for yourself out of spite. My coworkers learned that lesson the hard way. What should I do if my husband staged an intervention after I asked for a divorce? I'm 32 years old and I've been married to my husband, who's 36, for 6 years. He's my first serious relationship. When we first met, I thought I had finally found someone who understood Mehe was funny, charming, intelligent, and we had so many interests in common. I believed we were a team, but now I feel trapped in a nightmare, and I don't know if I'm being unreasonable or if I'm finally seeing the truth. A few months ago, I hit a wall. At work, I faced a situation that went very badly, and it triggered severe burnout. I'm autistic, and when the burnout hit, it made my executive dysfunction so much worse. Since then, I've been on sick leave. Everyday life has become exhausting. I struggle with even basic things: cooking, cleaning, errands. I sleep too much, I barely socialize, I sometimes forget meals. I know this isn't healthy, but I'm trying to cope. My energy is limited, and most days I can only do the bare minimum. Instead of supporting me, my husband has grown frustrated. He complains that I don't meet his needs anymore. No sex, no daily cooking, the house isn't up to his standards. Multiple times, he's yelled at me for not doing enough while he's at work. When I try to explain how overwhelmed I am, he accuses me of exaggerating my symptoms just for attention. I've tried pushing myself to do more to meet his needs, but every time I crash. When I admit that, he says he doesn't want to hear my excuses because he already has enough on his plate. I've been crying almost every day, not just from exhaustion but from the constant tension. I never know what will set him off. One moment he's fine, the next he's angry because I didn't fold laundry or cook dinner. I started thinking maybe it would be better for both of us if we separate, at least temporarily, so I could focus on healing without the constant pressure. When I told him I wanted a divorce, he lost it. He yelled for hours, saying I was confused and irrational because of my mental health. He insisted it was my duty as his wife to stay, reminding me of the marriage vows, in sickness and in health. He later apologized, but the next time I brought it up, he had another meltdown. Then yesterday, something happened that left me shaken. I came downstairs in the morning, and there was my husband along with his parents and my parents sitting in the living room waiting for me. My stomach dropped immediately. They said they were worried about me, that they rarely heard from me, that I was isolating and harming myself. They framed it like a loving intervention. They told me I needed stability, that they were all here to help me. They said they wanted to support me no matter what. On the surface, it sounded caring, but the way it happened made me feel cornered, humiliated, and powerless. My husband had arranged all of this behind my back. He told them I was unstable, that I couldn't make my own decisions, and that I needed them to intervene. I cried through most of it. I felt trapped, like the walls were closing in. Instead of feeling supported, I felt controlled. It wasn't their concern that hurt, it was the way my husband orchestrated it. He made me feel like my voice didn't matter. Afterward, he told me he had already contacted my general practitioner and my old therapist to update them on my situation. He even booked me an appointment with a psychiatrist without asking me. He insisted this was all because he loved me and wanted me to be myself again. Part of me wonders if he's right, that maybe I am just lost in the fog of burnout and depression, and he's trying to do what's best. But another part of me feels like this is about control, not care. I said I wanted out, and instead of respecting that, he rallied everyone to pressure me into staying. I feel guilty even considering divorce because I know I'm not at my best right now. I worry that maybe I am being selfish. I still love him in many ways, and I know he loves me too, but love doesn't erase the fear and humiliation I feel. What makes it worse is that my parents see me as fragile. They didn't question the setup. They just assumed my husband was right. I feel like if I tell them I still want a divorce, they'll see it as proof that I'm unstable. So here I am, overwhelmed, exhausted, and questioning everything. Am I selfish for wanting to leave when he's trying to help? Or is this actually manipulation disguised as love? The truth is, I don't feel safe with him anymore. Not physically, but emotionally. I feel like my choices are being erased. Instead of listening to me, he made decisions about my life and then surrounded me with people to make sure I couldn't say no. I want to stay with my parents for a while to give myself space. But I'm scared that even they won't support me if I decide to go through with the divorce. I've started to realize that even though my husband says he's doing all this for me, the reality is that he can't accept me as I am right now. He wants the version of me who could work, cook, laugh, and keep the house spotless. He doesn't want the burned out, exhausted me who needs care and patience. That's what makes me think leaving might really be the best option for both of us. Because if he can't love me at my worst, then what's the point of pretending? Still, the guilt eats away at me. What if I am overreacting? What if I'm throwing away a marriage I could fix? I'm lost and I need outside perspectives. So Reddit, am I wrong for wanting a divorce after my husband staged an intervention instead of listening to me? Should I stay and keep trying? Or should I take this as a sign that I need to walk away for good? Today I messed up by talking with the wrong dead person. This is my very first Reddit post, and honestly I never thought my debut would be about something so ridiculous, but here we are. I'm 19 years old, female, and what I did last week still makes me want to bury my face in a pillow and scream. The story begins with my best friend, whom I'll call Conan. He's 18, and we've been inseparable for years. He's the kind of friend who feels more like family, you know, the person you text first thing in the morning and last thing at night. Unfortunately, tragedy struck recently. Conan's older brother died in a car accident. He was young, healthy, and had his whole life ahead of him. When I got the call, my heart shattered. I attended the funeral trying to be there for Conan, but I felt helpless. He was devastated, and all I could do was sit next to him and hold his hand. For days afterward, I couldn't stop thinking about his brother. I wasn't super close to him, but he had always treated me kindly, and in some ways he felt like my own brother. A few days later, I decided I wanted to visit the cemetery alone. I'm not the most spiritual person, but something in me needed that quiet moment. I thought maybe if I sat by his grave, I could talk to him, tell him how much Conan loved him, and maybe find some peace myself. So I asked my mom to drive me. She'd been at the funeral too, and she understood. We arrived at the cemetery, and immediately I realized I had no idea where the grave was. Cemeteries are confusing, rows and rows of stones, some new, some old, flowers everywhere. Eventually, we found the general area where I remembered the burial had been. That's when things went sideways. There were two fresh graves side by side, both without nameplates yet. One had a mountain of flowers on top like a rainbow blanket of lilies, roses, and wreaths. The other had fewer flowers, but the grass was discolored, like it had been dug up recently. I hesitated. My gut told me the one with more flowers was probably his, but I wasn't sure. I walked closer to check, but the gravestone was completely covered. I could barely see anything. My mom, trying to help, pointed to the one with less flowers and said, "I think that's it. Look, the grass is still new." I second-guessed myself. Maybe she was right. After all, moms know best, right? So I knelt down at the less decorated grave and began talking. For 15 whole minutes, I poured my heart out. I told him how much Conan missed him, how unfair life was, how I hoped he was resting peacefully. Tears streamed down my face. I whispered things I'd never say aloud in front of Conan, thinking I was confiding in his brother's spirit. When I finally stood up, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. I thought I had honored his memory. 2 days later, Conan asked me to come back to the cemetery with him. His dad came too, to drive us home afterward. As we arrived, Conan turned to me and said, "You were just here, right? You know where he is. Show me." Panic prickled in my chest, but I nodded. Of course I'd lead the way. Confidently, I guided him straight to the grave I'd visited, the one with fewer flowers. We stood there quietly for a moment, Conan staring at the ground. Then from a distance his dad called out, "Hey, wrong one. He's over here." My entire body froze. I looked down, realizing with horror that once again, I was at the wrong grave. The actual one, the right one, was the one covered in flowers, the one I doubted the first time. Conan turned to me, confusion written all over his face, then burst into uncontrollable laughter. You cried over the wrong guy? He doubled over, wheezing, clutching his stomach. I felt like the ground should just swallow me whole. My face burned and tears pricked my eyes again, but this time out of embarrassment. Tu didn't know. The flowers covered the name. I stammered. His dad walked over, chuckling too. Well, at least you gave someone else some love. I'm sure they appreciated the company. That broke the tension, and soon I found myself laughing too, even though my cheeks still felt like fire. The three of us stood there, giggling at my mistake, while inside I wanted to melt into the earth. Later, as we drove home, Conan teased me relentlessly. Imagine some random dude up there like, who's this girl crying for me? I don't even know her. He kept snickering, repeating the story until my embarrassment reached astronomical levels. But in a strange way, it also brought us closer. Instead of drowning in grief, he got a much-needed laugh. And maybe, just maybe, his brother would have laughed too. Even now, though, I can't shake the memory. I keep replaying myself kneeling there, pouring my soul out to a complete stranger buried in the wrong plot. It's equal parts mortifying and hilarious. So yet a day I messed up by grieving over the wrong dead person. I just need to get this off my chest. My parents regret having kids, and it makes me feel unwanted. Growing up, I always wished I could hear my parents say they were proud of me, or that they loved me without conditions. Instead, I grew up hearing something else, something far more painful. My father would look at me in moments of anger and say, I should never have married your mother. My biggest mistake was having kids with her. Imagine being a child, hearing that again and again, and realizing he was talking about you. I am 25 now, but those words still echo inside me. They cut deeper than I could ever explain. I carried them through my teenage years, through my early 20s, and even today I cannot shake them. Sometimes when I heard him say those things, I would feel so crushed that I wondered why I was even alive. I tried to push those thoughts away, but they haunted me. In 2018, everything fell apart. My dad's abuse reached a breaking point, and my mom finally left. For a while I stayed behind with him, not because I wanted to, but because I felt stuck. Life in my country is already so hard, it is war-torn, unstable, and the future feels uncertain. I thought maybe I could survive it, maybe things would change. They did not. By 2023, I could not take it anymore, and I finally left his house without a plan, without knowing what I would do next. I moved in with my mom. She had been living alone, and at first it felt like maybe this would be a chance for healing. She was not abusive the way my dad was, but she carried her own pain, and often she would unload it on me. She talks badly about my dad all the time, and honestly I get it. After everything she endured, she has every right to speak her truth. I never hold that against her. What hurts, though, is when she shifts from criticizing him to lamenting her entire life. Sometimes she sighs and says, I should never have married him. If I had stayed single, I could have lived like a queen. And every time she says that, I feel like she is saying I am the mistake. That my existence is the reason her life is not what she wanted it to be. That if not for me, she could have been free, wealthy, or happy. It is devastating to hear those words from your own mother, especially after hearing the same kind of rejection from your father. It makes me feel like I was never meant to be here. Like my life is an accident that ruined theirs. And when you grow up hearing things like that, it is hard not to internalize them. I catch myself crying at night, overwhelmed with shame for simply existing. I think about how I am 25 years old now, and I should be independent, stable, and strong. Instead, I am still tangled up in this family trauma that will not let me go. Part of me feels angry. Why did they have children at all if they were only going to resent us? Why bring life into the world if you cannot handle the responsibility, or if you see it as a mistake? But more than anger, I feel sadness. Deep, unshakable sadness. Because even if they did not mean it literally, their words have shaped how I see myself. When I try to imagine a future, it feels blurry. I want to believe that I can build a life beyond their regrets. I want to believe that I am not a mistake. But the voices of my parents play like a recording in my mind, and sometimes it feels impossible to fight them. Still, I keep trying. I remind myself that I did not choose to be born, that their choices were their own, that I am not responsible for their unhappiness, even if they made me feel like I was. It is hard, though. Healing from wounds that cut this deep takes time, and I am still in the middle of it. I hate that I still cry about this even years later. I hate that I feel ashamed to be struggling at 25, when I see others my age moving forward in life with confidence. Trauma does not have an expiration date, though. You cannot just snap your fingers and erase years of being told you were unwanted. Some days are better. On those days, I find comfort in small things: music, writing, the rare moments of peace. Other days, like today, the weight feels unbearable. I carry the words of my parents like scars carved into me, and no matter how much I try, I cannot fully silence them. Maybe one day I will be free of their voices. Maybe one day I will build a family of my own and give them what I never had: love without resentment, pride without conditions, care without blame. Until then, I am just doing my best to survive, to remind myself that my life has value even if my parents never saw it. Writing this out is painful, but it is also a release. I cannot talk about it openly in real life. People would not understand, or they would judge me for not being stronger by now. So I am saying it here. I hate when my parents talk about how they regret marrying and having children, because every time they say it, it makes me feel like I should not exist. I know I am not alone in this feeling, even if it feels that way. Somewhere out there, others have heard similar words from the people who were supposed to love them most. And if anyone else feels this way, I hope they know they are not a mistake. We are not the cause of our parents' unhappiness. We are our own people and we have the right to live, to love, and to be loved. That is what I am holding on to. Even in the darkest moments, the possibility that my life has meaning beyond the regrets of my parents. What happens when I follow the rules exactly and refuse to move my truck until someone else fixes their mistake? Back in the late 1990s, I was working as a truck driver covering central and eastern Pennsylvania, parts of New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and occasionally down into Maryland and Virginia. Driving through those areas meant a lot of city traffic: Philadelphia, Baltimore, Richmond, New York, you name it. Big cities, small towns, highways, alleyways. And if you've ever driven a truck in a city, you know that people don't like us. In their eyes, we're just big, slow obstacles that get in the way of their daily latte run. They don't understand that cutting off a 40,000-pound truck is basically begging for an accident. They don't realize how blind spots work, or how much space we need to swing wide for a turn. They see us as a nuisance, not as professionals doing dangerous, necessary work. Over the years, I had learned to be patient. If someone stopped behind me while I was backing up, I'd stop and wait. If someone parked in my blind spot, I'd take my time. Better safe than sorry. But one incident in 1997 really stood out, and it's the one that still makes me smile when I think about it. That day, I was driving our largest truck in the fleet, a twin-stick Mack with a 42-foot boom crane mounted on it. This beast was huge, with flotation tires on the front that were nearly twice the size of regular ones. Those tires spread out the weight so the truck wouldn't sink into soft ground. The downside? The turning radius was terrible. Even though the truck itself was about 20 feet shorter than a standard tractor trailer, it needed just as much space to make a turn. My load that morning was roofing materials for a commercial job in Upper Darby, just outside of Philadelphia. I approached a busy intersection where I needed to make a right turn. It was one of those complex intersections with multiple through lanes, left turn lanes, and right turn lanes. The proper way to make the turn in a truck like mine was to approach in the right lane, wait for the left turn lane to clear, swing wide to the left, and then cut back right. It's legal, safe, and prevents cars from sneaking up on your right side. So there I was, waiting for the light, positioned perfectly. I had left about 50 feet of clearance so I could swing left when the oncoming traffic cleared. That's when I noticed her, a woman in a small sedan, sitting in the left turn lane across from me. Instead of stopping behind the thick white line painted on the road, the line that marks where you're supposed to stop so trucks and emergency vehicles can maneuver, she had pulled forward. Way forward. Too far forward. I knew instantly that I couldn't complete my turn. If I tried, my trailer would hit her car. So I signaled to her, waving my hand in a clear backup motion. She looked at me, shook her head, and mouthed the word, "No." I frowned. I waved again, more firmly this time. Still she shook her head. No movement. "Lady, you've got to be kidding me," I muttered inside the cab. She was the only car in the lane. Nobody was behind her. She had plenty of room to reverse a few feet. But she was stubborn. Fine. Malicious compliance time. I put the truck in neutral, pulled the parking brake, and shut off the engine. Then I folded my arms and leaned back in the seat. If she didn't want to move, neither was I. Traffic started to pile up quickly. Cars behind me were forced to squeeze around the truck. North and southbound traffic was gridlocked. Eastbound traffic couldn't move at all because I was blocking the intersection. The woman in the sedan sat there with her arms crossed, glaring at me. Light cycle after light cycle passed. Horns honked. People gestured angrily. I just sat there, calm as can be, because unlike her, I was on the clock. I got paid by the hour. She wasn't. Sure enough, after a few minutes, the police arrived. From the way the officer marched up to my window, I could tell the call had been reported as a truck blocking the intersection. He leaned up to the cab. "Driver, you need to back this truck up right now," he ordered. I shook my head. "No can do, officer. If I back up and hit something, I'm legally liable even if you're guiding me. Company policy and the law. I can't reverse in an intersection." The cop frowned. He clearly hadn't expected that answer. He looked at the situation again, walked over to the woman in the sedan, and started talking to her. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the body language. She was arguing, gesturing angrily toward me. He crossed his arms, stood firm, and finally pointed behind her car. I have no doubt he mentioned the word ticket. At last, with a look of pure frustration, she shifted into reverse and backed up the few feet she should never have crossed in the first place. I started my engine again, released the brakes, and smoothly completed my right turn without a problem. As I drove away, I chuckled to myself. I never saw the woman or the officer again, and I don't know if she got a ticket. But the smug satisfaction of sitting there, calm and unbothered, while her stubbornness caused an entire traffic jam that made my day. Driving a truck in the city can be stressful, but sometimes malicious compliance is the only way to remind people that the rules exist for a reason. Should I stay in this relationship if my partner lets his dad live with us forever? When I moved in with my partner, I imagined our home as a safe space. We are both in our mid-20s, renting our first house together, decorating it with our own touches, and learning how to share a life. It was supposed to be a chapter about independence and building a future as a couple. But that vision was shattered when his father moved in temporarily. About a year ago, his dad needed a place to stay. Recently divorced, with a hefty settlement in his bank account, He claimed he was just looking for a new home and needed a short-term solution. I thought it would be a few months at most. I wanted to be supportive both for my partner and for his father, so I agreed. Those few months have turned into more than a year, and he is still here. First, I tried to be understanding. Adjusting to one more person in the house wasn't easy, but I told myself it was temporary. Soon he would get back on his feet, find a house, and move on. But every week that passed made it clear. He had no intention of leaving. What makes this situation harder to swallow is that he is not broke. He walked away from his divorce with nearly $500,000. He could buy his own place, rent an apartment, or do literally anything else. Instead, he lounges in our living room, leaves dirty dishes in the sink, and treats our home like his crash pad. I have begged my partner to talk to him. I have tried explaining how this is impacting me, how I feel like a guest in my own home, how our intimacy has disappeared because my partner feels uncomfortable being affectionate with his dad under the same roof, how my mental health is unraveling because there is no privacy or sense of us anymore. Each time my partner promises he will bring it up. Each time nothing changes. It has reached the point where I no longer feel like this house belongs to us. I miss the nights we used to cook together, the mornings we used to sleep in and laugh in the kitchen. Now I tiptoe around like I am intruding in someone else's space. Our relationship has become a quiet partnership, rather than the joyful connection we once had. The worst part is the intimacy, or rather, the lack of it. We have not been intimate at all since his dad moved in. My partner admits that he feels uncomfortable with his father there. And as a result, I feel rejected. I know he still loves me, but without closeness, without that physical connection, I feel us slipping apart. I keep trying to make him understand how serious this is for me. I tell him my confidence is crumbling, that I feel invisible, that our relationship cannot survive like this. But he always looks torn, caught between me and his father. I know it is not easy for him. It is his dad after all. But what about us? Do my needs not matter too? I do not want to be the villain who forces him to choose. I do not want to look like the heartless girlfriend who kicked out a struggling father. But the truth is, his dad is not struggling. He is choosing convenience over independence, and my partner is letting him. I am reaching my breaking point. I love my partner more than anything. He is the most important person in my life. But every day that passes makes me resentful toward his father for overstaying his welcome, and toward my partner for refusing to act. I do not want this resentment to fester. I do not want to wake up one day and realize that love wasn't enough to overcome the lack of boundaries. So I ask myself, how much longer can I keep going like this? How much longer can I sacrifice my comfort, my happiness, and my relationship before something breaks? Maybe the solution is as simple as my partner finally having the courage to talk to his dad. Maybe his father would listen if his own son told him it was time to move out. Or maybe nothing will change and I will have to decide if I can live like this indefinitely. Right now I do not know the answer. I only know that I cannot keep pretending everything is fine. Am I overreacting for wanting to end my marriage after what my husband did during our break? I am a 25-year-old woman and my husband 27, and I have been married for 2 years, together for 5. We married young, but we were both ready emotionally and financially. We both wanted a big family. I got pregnant last year, and about 6 months ago I had a stillbirth at 5 months. It happened after a fall. My husband slipped on the stairs, fell on me, and we both tumbled down. It was a freak accident, I do not blame him, but I was struggling not to at that point. I had to be rushed to the hospital and we lost the baby. The physical recovery was painful, and emotionally I was a mess. I was grieving, traumatized, and mentally not okay. I asked for space. I told him I wanted to stay with my parents for a while to heal and process everything. I started therapy and encouraged him to do the same. I was gone for about 2.5 months trying to recover emotionally, physically, and mentally. Eventually, I moved back in. We resumed therapy together. Things were still heavy, but I thought we were trying to move forward. That is when he told me very guiltily that while I was away, he hooked up with another woman because we were on a break. I was shocked, hurt, numb. We are married. We were not on a break like in some high school relationship. I went to stay with my parents to grieve our child, not to take a break from the relationship. I never once implied it was okay to sleep with other people. He never asked or clarified. He just decided that is what our space meant. To make it worse, he waited a month and a half after I came back to confess. That tells me he knew exactly what he was doing. He hid it. He lied by omission for weeks. I left immediately, booked a hotel for 3 days, cut everyone off. I did not want to talk to my parents or friends because I knew they would try to convince me to forgive him. Right now, I am staying with my brother for 2 weeks. I have even stopped therapy. Everything feels pointless for now. He has been apologizing non-stop, saying we can fix this, we can keep going to counseling, we can rebuild. He has even involved both our parents. Now everyone, his parents and my parents, is saying I should give him a chance. That he was grieving in his own way. That it was not cheating because we were apart. But I cannot look at it that way. I feel betrayed. I think he made a choice. And I do not feel any desire to fight for this marriage anymore. Everyone except my brother is making me feel like I am overreacting, that divorce is too far-fetched. Edit. Honestly, I am just now realizing he may have felt abandoned, and I did a poor job there. We were still in contact and he never said it in counseling, but maybe he felt like he could not say that. I cannot read his mind though. I was away from him too, but we both had our families there for us, so I never thought of it as abandoning him. I was still there for him. Still, I feel things would have only gotten worse if I had not taken that time, and I do not think I would change that. This does help me forgive him, not stay and move on if I do not think of him as some sort of monster for doing this. Am I the asshole for giving my friend a notice to move out after 8 months when she only asked for 45 days? I am a 28-year-old woman, and back in January, a friend of mine who is 34 asked me if she could stay with me temporarily. She told me it would only be for 45 days while she waited for her relocation process to go through. At the time, I thought it would be no problem. She was my friend and I wanted to help her out. I told her yes. First, it seemed manageable. She even used $200 worth of her food stamps to put groceries in the house, which I appreciated. We originally set her up in my toddler's room, where she slept on an air mattress. But soon, I went out of my way to make her more comfortable. I bought a metal bed frame, brought out a mattress and dresser from storage, and even moved my office upstairs so that she could have a proper bedroom. The 45 days passed, but her relocation fell through. She told me she would not stay without contributing something, and I thought that was fair. I talked with my husband, and we decided that $300 a month in cash would be a reasonable contribution. When I told her, she immediately got an attitude and asked if that was on top of the food stamps. Honestly, I had not even considered the food stamps as rent because she was also eating the food she brought in. She snapped at me saying, "I already feed y'all." That comment rubbed me the wrong way, but I let it slide. I told her fine, she could either pay $300 in cash or continue with food stamps, whichever she preferred. She agreed to food stamps. The problem was, she started acting like the food stamps alone were enough, and that she did not have to do anything else to contribute to the household. From February through June, I let a lot slide. I was dealing with health problems, both mental and physical, and I also had a 1-year-old child to take care of. My mom, who lives with us, noticed that my friend was not cleaning the bathroom she used exclusively. She also was not cleaning up after herself in the kitchen. In May, I hit my breaking point. I had a mental health breakdown and begged her to get a job, or at least help with household necessities. Nothing changed. She did not get a job, she did not help with cleaning, and she did not buy essentials for the home. She just stayed there, living rent-free in the bedroom I had set up for her. On June 6th, she started her second relocation attempt. She asked me directly if her being in the house was contributing to my stress, and I told her yes, absolutely. By that point, I was ready for her to leave. She said the relocation process would take 45 days to get a decision, and she begged me to let her stay until then. On June 24th, I finally had enough. I gave her an official notice to move out by August 30th. We both signed it and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. But just a couple of days later, she admitted to me that her relocation paperwork had not even started on June 6th like she had claimed. It did not actually start until July 7th. I was frustrated, but I still believed the August 30th deadline gave her plenty of time to figure things out. As the deadline approached, she started testing me. Every few days, she would ask if I still wanted her to leave on the 30th, casually reminding me that she had no solid plan. Each time I told her yes, the deadline remained the same. On August 24th, she spent an hour and a half chatting with me and my mom, and then when we both went to our rooms, she quietly moved out. She did not say goodbye, she did not thank us, nothing. She just left. Later, I sent her a text saying she could have at least said goodbye, and that was when she went off on me. She sent me a nasty message attacking both me and my husband, saying that we did her wrong, that I had shown my true colors, and that we had put her out with nowhere to go. She also claimed that her relocation was successful, but that she had not told me because she felt I just wanted her gone. That was the last straw. I was stunned. I had given her 8 months in my home when she had originally asked for 45 days. I had given her food, shelter, furniture, and more grace than I probably should have. And instead of being grateful, she left without a word and then attacked me for setting a clear boundary. I feel like I bent over backward for her. I sacrificed my office space, gave her my toddler's room, cleaned up after her, tolerated her attitude, and even accepted food stamps instead of real money for rent. I also gave her months longer than she originally asked for. And yet, I cannot shake the guilt. Part of me wonders if I should have extended more compassion, given her even more time, or tried harder to help her through her relocation process. Another part of me thinks enough is enough. 8 months is not a temporary favor. 8 months is taking advantage of someone's kindness. Now I am left questioning myself. Was I really wrong for giving my friend a notice to move out after 8 months? Was I the asshole for sticking to a deadline she agreed to? Or was she the one who took advantage of me, and I simply enforced a boundary that should have been enforced months ago? Am I the asshole for refusing to share a bed with my ex-wife even though she says her boyfriend wouldn't mind? I am a 41-year-old man, and I was married to my ex-wife for several years. We started dating when she was 24 and I was 28. From the beginning, she told me I was different from the guys she had dated before. She said I was the first one to take her on proper dates instead of just hookups, and she seemed grateful for that. After about 20 months, we got engaged, then married, and eventually had our daughter, who is 12 now. For a while, things seemed fine. But over the years, I noticed something. The ex-wife always seemed like she was searching for something more. She couldn't settle into the life we had. The restlessness grew, and eventually, our marriage unraveled when she cheated. That betrayal hurt deeply, but I tried to move forward. We separated 2 years ago, and our divorce was finalized last year. Since then, I've stayed single. I haven't dated seriously, partly because I wanted to focus on my daughter. My ex-wife, however, moved on quickly. She dated a few men before settling down with Mark, a 45-year-old former football player. He's a big guy built like a pro athlete who's now carrying some extra weight. Still, he seems decent. My daughter likes him, so I have no complaints about that. I own a beach house that we used to visit as a family. After the divorce, I've been taking my daughter there on weekends. It's our little escape, a place where she and I can relax without the tension that lingers at home. Last week, I went to pick her up at my ex-wife's house. That's when she asked if she could come with us to the beach, since Mark was away on a work trip and she was bored. I hesitated for a moment but eventually said yes. I didn't want to make things awkward for my daughter. First, everything was fine. We drove down, had dinner together, and I thought it would just be a normal weekend. But that night, the issue came up. As I was getting ready for bed, she just climbed under the covers like old times. I froze. I asked her, "What are you doing?" She looked at me casually and said, "Relax, Mark wouldn't mind. It's not a big deal." But to me it was a big deal. I told her I wasn't comfortable with that. She brushed it off, insisting it didn't mean anything. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was wrong. She is in a relationship. I am her ex-husband. Sharing a bed crossed a line no matter what she said about Mark being fine with it. Nothing happened we didn't touch, but I barely slept that night. The next morning I felt sick with unease. A few days later she texted me, asking if she could come to the beach again while Mark was away. I decided not to avoid the subject anymore. I waited until I saw her in person and said, "I'm not okay with you sharing my bed while you're in a relationship. It's disrespectful to both me and Mark." She got defensive. "Mark really wouldn't care," she insisted. I said, "If that's true, then I want to hear it directly from him. Let him tell me himself that he's okay with his girlfriend sleeping in her ex-husband's bed." That's when she lost it. She accused me of being jealous of her relationship, of still being bitter. She said I was overreacting and making drama where there didn't need to be any. But I don't think I'm overreacting. I'm not jealous of Mark. In fact, I think he's a decent guy, and I respect that he's part of my daughter's life. That's exactly why I don't want to be in a position where he might feel betrayed or disrespected. If the roles were reversed, if I had a girlfriend and she climbed into her ex's bed, my partner would be devastated. This isn't about jealousy. It's about boundaries. Our marriage ended because she cheated. That alone is enough reason for me to never blur those lines again. I worked hard to rebuild my self-respect after that betrayal. Letting her back into my bed, even platonically, feels like erasing all of that progress. Now she's upset with me, claiming I'm being difficult and judgmental. She says I should get over myself and that I'm only hurting our daughter by creating tension. But in my mind, the tension didn't come from Mike, came from her crossing a line that never should have been crossed. I don't want to confuse my daughter either. She's old enough to notice things, and if she sees her parents in the same bed again, what message does that send? It could give her false hope or make her think boundaries don't matter. I want her to grow up understanding that respect in relationships is important. So here I am, wondering if I handled this right. Was I too harsh for telling my ex-wife no? Should I have just shrugged and let her stay in my bed since she claimed it didn't mean anything? Or was I right to draw a firm boundary and refuse to blur the lines, even if she insists Mark wouldn't mind? Am I the asshole for refusing to share a bed with my ex-wife again? Is this entitled behavior when a passenger complained about a medical emergency delay on our flight? Air travel always carries a level of unpredictability, but one experience from a few years ago remains unforgettable. It revealed how selfish and entitled some people can be when minor inconveniences disrupt their perfect plans. I was flying home from a vacation island, a 4-hour journey scheduled to land around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Like most passengers, I expected nothing more than a quiet flight, a few hours of reading, and a safe arrival. Instead, the trip turned into a lesson about human decency, or the lack of it. The first half of the flight was uneventful. People settled into their seats, attendants moved gracefully up and down the aisles, and the hum of the engines lulled the cabin into calm. Around the 2-hour mark, the peaceful rhythm broke. The pilot's voice crackled over the speakers, asking if there was a doctor on board. That phrase always sends a shiver down your spine because it rarely means anything minor. 2 men stood up immediately, identified themselves as doctors, and hurried to the back of the plane. The cabin buzzed with nervous whispers. Passengers exchanged worried glances, craning their necks to see what was happening. Within minutes, the pilot announced that we would be diverting to the nearest airport due to a medical emergency. No one complained at first. Everyone understood that someone's life was at stake. The plane descended quickly, and about 20 minutes later we touched down. Outside the window, an ambulance and emergency team waited on the tarmac. Paramedics boarded, and soon they carried out an elderly man on a stretcher, followed closely by a woman in tears. His wife, I assumed. The scene was heartbreaking, and most of us silently wished them strength. The pilot gave us an update, explaining that the man had suffered a heart attack. We needed to unload their luggage, refuel the plane, and handle paperwork before continuing our journey. It would take roughly 30 minutes, meaning we would arrive at our original destination around 6 instead of 4. Most passengers nodded in understanding. A delay was inconvenient, but the situation was beyond anyone's control. Life always takes priority over punctuality. Unfortunately, not everyone saw it that way. Sitting directly beside me was a woman who seemed to believe her schedule was the only one that mattered. The moment the announcement ended, she started complaining loudly. She muttered that she would now be late, that her son was waiting for her at the airport, and that it was unacceptable for the airline to inconvenience her. She went so far as to declare that old people should not be allowed to fly if they could have heart problems. Her words dripped with cruelty and self-centeredness. At first I tried to ignore her. Maybe she was just venting out of stress. But she kept going. She complained to anyone who would listen, repeating over and over that it was outrageous she would be delayed. She sighed dramatically, rolled her eyes, and huffed like a teenager denied a privilege. After 10 minutes of this, my patience wore thin. Everyone else was quietly respectful. Yet here she was, broadcasting her entitlement as if the universe revolved around her. Finally I snapped. I turned to her and said sharply, "Do you think any of us wanted to be late?" That old man certainly did not want to have a heart attack today. His wife did not want to end her trip in tears at a hospital. This delay is inconvenient, but for them it is a matter of life and death. So maybe you should stop complaining and be grateful you are healthy and safe. My words came out harsher than I intended, but I meant every one of them. Her reaction was a mixture of shock and anger. She glared at me with narrowed eyes, clearly offended that someone dared to challenge her narrative. But she did not respond out loud. For the rest of the flight, she sat stiffly in silence, occasionally shooting me dark looks. I did not care. I would rather endure her angry stares than her endless whining. When we finally landed at our original destination, 2 hours later than planned, most passengers simply gathered their belongings and left. I noticed the woman rush off without making eye contact. Perhaps she was still fuming, or perhaps she realized how ridiculous she had sounded. Either way, she never said another word to me. Looking back, the incident still amazes me. A man's life hung in the balance, and instead of compassion, this woman chose entitlement. She was more concerned about waiting a little longer at the airport than about the possibility of someone dying. It made me wonder how often people reveal their true selves when faced with inconvenience. Many showed empathy that day, but one woman exposed how shallow and selfish she was. The lesson I took away is simple. Inconvenience is temporary, but life is precious. Delays can be frustrating, but perspective matters. I would rather be late 100 times if it means someone else has a chance to live. And I will never forget the entitled passenger, who proved that not everyone shares that belief. Was I wrong to stand my ground when a grumpy woman claimed I parked too close? Parking lots are battlefields in disguise. The yellow lines may look simple enough, but anyone who's circled a crowded grocery store parking lot knows tensions rise fast. This story is one of those small but satisfying moments where pettiness came to the rescue. I was heading to the grocery store on a busy day when I got lucky. 2 open parking spaces right next to each other near the entrance. That was a rare find because this particular store's lot was awkwardly designed and didn't have many convenient spots. As I approached, I noticed another car coming from the opposite direction. The driver, a woman, was also eyeing one of the spaces. Wanting to be courteous, I waved her in. She pulled into the space on the left, and I took the one right next to her on her driver's side. Everything seemed fine until I noticed her glaring at me. She made some kind of vague gesture toward the ground or her car door. I couldn't tell exactly what she meant, but her expression said it all. She thought I had parked too close, making it difficult for her to get out. Now, I consider myself a careful driver and a decent parker. I looked at my position and saw I was well within the lines. Still, I thought, okay, maybe I can shift over a little and ease her mind. I put the car in reverse, straightened out, and reparked slightly farther away. Her reaction? Another glare, this time paired with a dramatic sigh. I still tried to be nice. No problem, I thought. I'll move a little more. I backed out again and slid over a few more inches. When I parked the second time, her response escalated. Dirty look, sigh, and now a full-on eye roll. That was it. The sparkle in my day was in danger, and I wasn't about to let Madame Grump ruin it. I got out of my car to check my parking job. On the driver's side of my car, the space was tight, but there was another vehicle with a passenger inside. Since that person wasn't planning to get out, it didn't matter. On her side, though, I could clearly see her car was parked a few centimeters over the line into my spot. In other words, she was actually the one causing the problem, not me. I realized I had a decision to make. Should I keep catering to her attitude or stand my ground? My patience was gone. Time for some petty justice. I climbed back into my car while she waved her hands and mouthed something that didn't look pleasant. I gestured for her to calm down, then backed out a third time. This time I lined myself up perfectly in the middle of my space, exactly between the 2 lines. I was flawless. She did not appreciate this final move. She rolled her window down and snapped. "Where do you think you're going? You need to move your car." At that moment, the passenger in the car on my other side leaned forward to catch my attention. He had been watching the entire show. With perfect timing, he shouted, "Forget her. Some people just can't be pleased." I couldn't help laughing. I pointed at him, then turned to Madame Grump and said, "What he said." The man and I high-fived right there between our cars while she sat fuming, still trapped in her own bad mood. I grabbed my shopping bag, adjusted my jacket, and walked toward the store with my head held high. Behind me, she sat like an angry statue, probably stewing over the fact that her little tantrum had backfired. It wasn't grand revenge, but it was enough. I had been polite, considerate, and more than patient. But sometimes people just need to be reminded that glaring and sighing won't bully others into submission, especially when they're the ones in the wrong. The best part? I had the picture I snapped of both our cars, showing my perfect parking job and her crooked one. Proof that Madame Grump was grumpy for no reason at all. What should I do if my wife wants to disown her daughter for dating another woman? I'm a 40-year-old man and I've been married to my wife Laura, also 40, for 7 years. We've been together for 10. When we first met, I fell for her almost instantly. She was kind, thoughtful, and compassionate, even though I knew she had scars from her past. Her ex had emotionally abused her, and she carried a lot of pain from that relationship. But with me, she was open, gentle, and loving. She had a daughter from that previous relationship, Riley, who's now 19. I didn't meet Riley until about a year into dating her mom. At first, she didn't like me. She resented the idea of her mother dating anyone and wanted to live with her dad, even though he was unreliable and barely paid child support. When she and her mom moved in with me, things got even harder. Riley was rebellious, destructive, and constantly in trouble at school. She told us she hated us and wanted to leave. It broke my heart, but I tried to be patient. I never tried to replace her dad. I just stayed consistent, helping with homework, going to soccer games, and trying to show up for her. Then, when Riley was 14, her father got remarried and basically cut her off completely. She was devastated. Laura and I got her into therapy and slowly things improved. Her grades went up, she stopped acting out, and she started trusting us more. Over time, she and I built a strong relationship. She wasn't just Laura's daughter anymore, she was family to me too. So last week, when Riley sat us down to talk, I thought it would just be another small family moment. She confessed she was bisexual and that she wanted us to meet her girlfriend. I immediately told her how proud I was of her, how much I loved her, and how excited I was to meet the girl who made her happy. But Laura's reaction stunned me. She went quiet, just staring at Riley with this unreadable expression. And then out of nowhere, she told Riley to get out. I couldn't believe it. I stepped in immediately and told Laura to stop. I said we were not going to kick Riley out for being who she is. That's when Laura turned her anger on me. She said I was betraying her, choosing Riley over her, choosing sin over my wife. The rest of the night was a nightmare. I sent Riley to her room, then tried to reason with Laura, but she wouldn't budge. She said she wanted Riley gone, and not just gone but cut off completely. She wanted to take back the car we'd given Riley, stop paying for her college classes and therapy, and erase her from our lives. She even blamed me for encouraging therapy in the first place, saying it turned Riley against her. I told her that was cruel and dangerous. Cutting off your daughter because she's bisexual? Abandoning her at the moment she needs support the most? I couldn't accept it. I spent the next few days trying to talk to Laura, but she wouldn't soften. She said she hoped Riley would hit rock bottom and come crawling back, ready for conversion camp. She doesn't care how much pain that would cause. Meanwhile, Riley has been shattered. She's been crying, isolating herself, and blaming herself for the tension in our marriage. I've tried to reassure her that none of this is her fault, that I love her, and that she is always welcome in my home. But the damage Laura has done is deep. The truth is, I don't even know if I can look at my wife the same way anymore. I thought she was kind, compassionate, and open-hearted. Now I've seen a side of her that is filled with hate and cruelty. Last night, Laura went to stay with her parents. She's still adamant that I'm betraying her and destroying our marriage. But honestly, I don't care anymore about saving the marriage. I care about protecting Riley. She's been through enough already. First, her father abandoned her, and now her mother wants to erase her for being herself. I can't let that happen. I'm even considering legal options. The house is in my name, bought before the marriage. I want to know if I can force Laura to leave permanently, because right now, Riley needs stability and safety. I've been thinking about ways to cheer Riley up, to remind her she's not alone. I told her I'll always be there no matter what. We ordered pizza, watched movies, and her girlfriend is coming over for dinner soon. There have been a lot of tears, but she told me it means everything that I'm standing by her. As for Laura, I don't know if there's any path back. I can't ignore what she's shown me. I can't pretend it's just a difference in values. This is about basic humanity, and if she's willing to throw away her own daughter over this, then I don't think I want to be married to her anymore. I never imagined I'd be here, choosing between my wife and my stepdaughter. But when the choice is between hate and love, I know exactly where I stand. So Reddit, what should I do next? Should I fight to save my marriage, or should I focus on protecting Riley, even if that means walking away from my wife for good? Today I messed up by giving myself mild water poisoning while trying to perform a drug test. This actually happened today, and I'm still shaking my head at how stupid I was. If someone had told me a week ago that I'd end up puking water all over my kitchen sink because of a simple drug test, I would have laughed. Yet here I am, exhausted, nauseous, and wiser by one very embarrassing life lesson. Let me back up. I've been undergoing a diagnostic process for a medical condition. If the doctors confirm it, I'll need medication that falls under controlled substances. That means before prescribing anything, I had to complete a semi-monitored drug test. Semi-monitored basically means they don't stare at you in the bathroom, but someone waits just outside the door to make sure you don't swap samples or pull any tricks. Simple enough, right? Well, not for me. See, I have this problem. I'm what you'd call a nervous peer. My body clams up if I know I have to go on command. The harder I try, the worse it gets. Yesterday, I attempted the test right after my appointment. I drank half a liter of water before leaving, thinking that would do the trick. But when the moment came, I sat in the bathroom for 2 attempts of 10 minutes each, staring at the wall, listening to myself breathe, and nothing. Not a drop. The testing center was about to close, so they told me to come back tomorrow. Of course, the second I got home, relaxed, and wasn't under pressure, I went like a waterfall. Classic. So today I was determined not to fail again. I overprepared. I decided, this time, I'll be so hydrated I could pee on command like a fire hose. My plan seemed foolproof. I spent 2 hours chugging water before heading out roughly 2 to 2.5 liters. First I felt fine. Full but fine. Then I got in my car to drive to the clinic. About 10 minutes into the drive, stuck at a red light, it hit me. My stomach lurched, my throat tightened, and I started dry heaving. I clamped my mouth shut, terrified I'd vomit all over my steering wheel and coat. Somehow I powered through and made it to the clinic, but I felt awful queasy, shaky, and lightheaded. When I walked in, I was hit with bad news. There was a 1-hour wait time. An hour. My body was already screaming at me, and now I had to sit in a waiting room with strangers, pretending I wasn't about to explode. I sat down, bouncing my knee, trying not to gag. My hands shook slightly, my head pounded, and my stomach felt sloshy like I'd swallowed a fish tank. I tried to distract myself by scrolling on my phone, but every notification made me nauseous. At one point, I convinced myself I was just coming down with a cold because the symptoms felt similar. But deep down, I knew it was the ridiculous amount of water sloshing around inside me. Finally, after about half an hour, my name was called. Relief surged through me. The paperwork was quick, and when I finally stepped into the bathroom, I was so ready it was comical. The moment the door shut, I unleashed a stream like Niagara Falls. It was the easiest, fastest drug test of my life. Mission accomplished. I thought that would be the end of it, but my body had other plans. The second I got home, I stepped through the door and it was like my stomach realized it was safe. My body went, okay, we made it, no you can puke. I sprinted to the kitchen sink and threw up what felt like gallons of pure liquid. No food, no chunks, just endless water. It splashed back at me, soaking my shirt. By the time I stopped, I was leaning on the counter, gasping. I texted my partner, half laughing at my stupidity, half crying from discomfort. Just threw up like a whole lake. I think I overdid the water thing. She called me immediately, voice sharp with concern. Are you kidding me? You probably gave yourself mild water poisoning. Do not lie down. Eat something salty. Now. I grabbed a bag of chips, munching mechanically, trying to replenish sodium. With every salty bite, I realized how badly my body had been thrown off balance. Slowly, the headache dulled and the nausea eased. I felt better but also embarrassed. Who overdoses on water of all things? As I lay there sipping ginger ale and nibbling chips, I replayed the entire fiasco. If I had just trusted my body instead of panicking, none of this would have happened. But instead, I treated hydration like a competitive sport and ended up sick. The most ironic part? The whole point of the test was to prove I was healthy enough to be prescribed medication responsibly. And here I was, nearly giving myself hyponatremia because I couldn't relax long enough to pee. Now I've learned 2 important lessons. 1. Never force 2 liters of water into your body in 2 hours. 2. Sometimes the more you stress about something, the harder it gets, literally. So yeah, today I messed up big time. I just need to get this off my chest. I can't stand my kid's friend even though he's nice. I feel guilty even writing this, but I have to get it off my chest. I really cannot stand one of my son's friends. He is 12 years old, and they have known each other since preschool. By all accounts, he is not a bully, he is not cruel, and he is not intentionally disrespectful. On paper, he is the kind of kid parents are supposed to like, but for reasons I cannot quite explain, every interaction with him leaves me frustrated, exhausted, and counting the minutes until he goes home. Started with small things. For example, when he is thirsty, instead of asking politely for a drink of water, he will just stand there and announce, "I'm thirsty." I tried prompting him to ask properly. I tried explaining how to get water himself. None of it worked. Eventually, I gave up and now I just say bummer or ignore him because teaching basic manners over and over goes nowhere. Despite being an honor student, he seems completely incapable of handling practical tasks. Once we took the kids to the beach. He got sand all over himself, which is normal, but when it came time to rinse off in the ocean, he just froze. My then 5-year-old was trying to show him how to wade into the water, but he refused because it was too cold. I could not bring him home covered in sand, but I also could not force a 12-year-old into the water. In the end, I had to drop him off at his house without letting him inside mine, because I was not about to clean up that mess. Then there are the little gross habits. He has left dirty tissues right next to the trash can, 5 of them in one visit, even after I spoke to him about it. He just forgets or maybe does not care. And then there are the quirks that make him unbearable to be around for long stretches. He talks about himself in the third person, he is glued to screens every waking moment, and he refuses to learn anything athletic. He cannot ride a bike, he avoids anything physical, and somehow even though he plays video games constantly, he is not very good at them. Physically, he looks disheveled most of the time, like a character out of a Dickens novel. My younger child, who is 6, managed to beat him in an arm wrestling match last week easily. And while there is nothing wrong with being weaker, it just adds to the overall impression that he is helpless and unprepared for the simplest parts of life. The hardest part is that my son genuinely enjoys his company. He constantly asks if this boy can come for sleepovers. The friend almost always says yes because he has no other friends and plenty of free time. But he never reciprocates. My son is never invited to his home. It is always one-sided. Eating out is another ordeal. Despite having been to restaurants many times, he has no idea how to order food properly. He sits there confused, waiting for someone else to speak for him. Even basic social skills seem foreign to him. I know this sounds harsh, but I am trying to paint the picture of what it is like. It is not just one quirk, it is an avalanche of small, frustrating behaviors that add up. I am working so hard not to be a jerk, because I recognize that none of this is truly his fault. His parents are neglectful. They do not seem to teach him life skills, and I suspect they leave him to fend for himself with screens as a babysitter. It is not his choice to grow up without guidance, and he does not deserve cruelty. That is why I bite my tongue and let him stay for dinner, even when I am cringing inside. That is why I keep my complaints bottled up, instead of snapping at him for things that are ultimately not his responsibility. I know he is still just a kid, and I know my son cares about him. But the truth is, I dread his visits. I dread the sleepovers, the tissues, the helpless questions, the constant self-referencing, and the smell of unwashed clothes. I dread the way my house feels chaotic when he is around, and I hate myself for feeling this way about a child who has done nothing truly wrong. I have 3 kids and they all have friends. Most of those kids I like just fine. I treat them the way I would hope another parent would treat mine, with kindness, patience, and tolerance. But with this boy, I find myself counting the hours until he leaves, trying not to roll my eyes, and wondering how on earth he made it to 12 years old without learning basic things. Maybe I am being unfair. Maybe I am projecting my frustration with his parents onto him. Maybe part of me is resentful that I have to pick up the slack for their lack of parenting whenever he is in my house. Whatever the reason, the feelings are real and they are hard to carry. So here it is. I cannot stand my kid's friend. I will keep being civil. I will keep allowing him to come over because I know my son values their friendship. But inside I am tired and irritated, and I needed to let it out somewhere. If nothing else, I hope that writing this down relieves some of the guilt. I know he deserves compassion, but I also know it is human to have limits. And right now mine are stretched thin.